So a beggar sees a sign outside of the king's palace, and it says that tomorrow night there's a big party. And the beggar, he really feels called, he wants to go. And he goes and he talks to the guard, and he says, I really want to come, but this is all I have to wear. This is all I have. And he said, would you get permission that I could talk to the king, and I need some different clothes, please? And so he asks the guard 2 or 3 times, and finally the guard says, yeah, sure, why not? So he sends for somebody to come and take the man to the king, and he says, sir, I really want to come to your celebration party. I love what you've done, but I don't have the clothing. And so the king says, you're very fortunate, because I have a son your size. And he calls his son in, and he says, go and dress this man. And so the man goes in, and he gets this beautiful outfit. It's just glowing, and physiologically he changes. He's so energetic. He's looking at himself and just amazed. And he has this defining moment of change, you know? And then he looks back, and he sees those rags. And he got really vulnerable, and he runs over, and he picks them all up, and he holds on to them. And so at the dinner table, he holds on to his rags. And at the party, he holds on to his rags. And he spends the rest of his life wearing his new outfit, but holding on to the rags that he had. Wow. How many of you are holding on to some rags? Be it a belief about who you are, be it about a condition that someone told you is yours for the taking, for a statistic that someone said could be probably you. How many of you in any way are lacking abundantly or creatively or life-wise because of something that you refuse to, up till now, to let go? That the new looks very invigorating and exciting. Those declarations, those intentional things that you say that, yeah, I'm ready. And you can hear yourself say that, yeah, I'm ready. I bet many of you have a to-do list. But how often do you put you on the to-do list? You see. And so what are you holding on to that perhaps on this defining day you could let go of? There's a statement that says that, and I thought of it about 3 years ago, that our history describes us, but it does not need to define us. Our history describes us, but it is not necessary that it define us. My mother has spent the last few months trying to recover from the report that came from Ancestry.com. It's been very difficult for her to grasp, because she has been telling me since I was a little girl, and anybody that she's met for the first time, oh yeah, we're Indian, we're part Indian. And they go, you are? And yeah, Seminole. My grandmother, she would say, was half Seminole Indian from Jasper, Florida. And throughout our lives, when something would come up, she would say, yeah, it's because we're Indian. It's because of that. And when I got into, shamanic learning, she couldn't wait to tell my teacher, well, I'm Seminole Indian. So now she has this new window, because she realizes that what she's been saying about herself all her life doesn't and is not backed by the truth. What about you? How many things and how many moments, and how many statements do you make about yourself, perhaps daily, that are not your truth? Some people get a little uncomfortable right now with people being caught in false information or companies being revealed because they falsified reports. We're in the era of truth wins. We're in the era of truth wins. And for those people that are willing to go ahead and accept that and align with that life essence of being in the truth of who you are, it is somewhat effortless and often without pain. Yet those that are refusing and still wanting to force something to be a certain way, that time after time after time, we're getting the same results. It just won't work anymore. So continue to breathe. And for those around you that stop breathing, breathe for them. And I'll take the same for myself. I love the word familiar because we tend to lean towards what feels comfortable. We tend to lean to what we know. That's why we can leave one relationship and move across the United States or to another country and get the same kind of relationship that we already had. They just look different. And still play out the same things, right? Yeah, we can leave our parents and relocate across the world and pick relationships near us that parent us. Go figure, right? We tend to draw ourselves when we're half sleeping and half awake to things that are familiar. And on the front of that word would be family. Thank you, Alan. I'm so glad that you were here for the first service. Appreciate that. And and yet, what is on the back of the word? Familiar. What is on the back of the word? It's someone other than Alan. Liar. So you can see that. You can feel that and you can see that. We had 8 days at sea in doing the transatlantic, going to Canary Islands and Tenerife and winding up in Barcelona, Spain. And it was so interesting of people looking at themselves in that much water, at that much ocean, and getting at a deeper level of some solid truths of things that they're ready to make a change about. And that is what we do collectively. You don't have to go across the transatlantic. That's what we do when we gather here every week, or where we gather at the ocean, Hands Across America. Let's give them a hand. That was great. And Kim, thank you for that. It's any time we consciously awake to not letting our history define us, we're on to the emerging moment of who we are destined and supposed to be, you see. The issue is often we get too much in our head that creates too much of a space for us, and it's in our way. Let me give you some examples of some predictions that were made many, many years ago. There was a prediction made that a man said, "Who would consider drilling for oil in the earth? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard." That prediction was made. There was a prediction made that who would think that anybody would make a thing stick like a Post-it note? That is the craziest idea that anybody could ever come up with. Can you imagine how people laughed at that guy? You're going to do what? And you're going to put what with what? There was a prediction made by the U.S. Surgeon General that said, never will there be part of our moving forward in our humanity that a surgeon will be able to access anything in the chest and anything in the head. Wow. There was a prediction made when Mrs. Field came out with her cookies and wanted to have a store. They told her, don't bother. People aren't into soft cookies. You're never going to make it. People like the crunchy kind, and the kind that fall all over your lap makes them feel like they've had an experience. You know what I'm saying? Predictions were made about you. And predictions have been made about you. My 6th grade teacher told my parents I was never going to amount to anything because I talk too much. But back to you, predictions get made. When you look at your checkbook, predictions you make. When you look at where you live, you make predictions. Back in the early days as a student, when we used to be into our internship with ministerial school, our task was to go through dilapidating neighborhoods, and you can always tell because the toys are broken in the front yard, and that was part of what we were assigned to do, is to drive through that same neighborhood and pray around all those homes and give it 3 or 4 to go back and calculate what had changed. It's one thing to talk about principle, it's another thing to force it to come through in your life and transform who you are exponentially at the same time at the core of your being. Does that excite you? Because it excites me, you know? I am a prediction. I am one out of, 2,500 people that ever are sober more than a day? I'm one of how many hundreds of thousands of people that it lasts? A prediction. A prediction. A prediction that says statistically this is what it is, but we do not live in that. It is an untruth. Our reality is from a much broader process. There was a vacuum salesman that was in rural Tennessee, and he was all excited about his product. He knocked on the door and he told the woman what he had. He's got all these tools. He can go in the corner. He can do that. I mean, this vacuum cleaner is so good. It'll do everything but turn on your TV, you know? And she said, well, okay, come on in. So he comes on in. He's just, you know, talking about all his little things he can do. And he says, like, you see that big pile of dust over there and all that and that debris? He said, I guarantee you my vacuum cleaner will suck all of that up, and if it doesn't, I will eat it. And she said, well, you might as well go ahead and get your fork and knife, because we don't have power out here. There's a power. There's a power. That is our first principle. There is a power. It doesn't say there is a power equal to our situation. It says there is a power, you can join me, there is a power that is greater than we are, and what? There is a power that is greater than we are, and I'm glad I'm teaching next week. And we can use it. Right? There's a power that's greater than we are, and we can use it. It's getting plugged in. Does this resonate with you? Because I've still got this. It's to plug it in. And often we get into this story about ourselves, we get into the predictions, we get into the statistics, we get into our history, and we get into this labeling, and we can step away from that. And we want to create this core value right here, this imaginary realm of this space, and we create the space right in front of us, and we start affirming. It's like neuro-linguistic programming. We start affirming in this circle. When I step in this circle, I'm going to be transformed, just like that beggar that stepped into that place with the new clothing. I'm not going to accept what most people say, that I'll never recover from the loss of my loved one. I'll never be okay and be normal because, you know, I'm in recovery. Oh no, I'm going to have this battle for the rest of my life. I'm not going to be able to eat carbohydrates, and I'm going to have to eat a bean and a little piece of green all my life. It's destiny for me, you know, because that's what I've defined in myself. And I'm going to look at all those stories and I'm going to tell, and anything opposite of that is keeping me from putting my all in, I'm going to create in this circle. And I'm going to step in this circle. And the moment I step in it, I'm already going to witness that I'm already different. Because that is being tuned into a power that is greater than we are. The issue with our humanity is we are determined to make it complicated. Some people were asking me the other day, they said, you know, why is it that in the science of mind they call prayer treatment? And I said, well, because the original idea of that was because they really believed in that moment that it came true. There was no begging, there was no pleading, there was a declaration of an affirmative result that a person was going to have, and they called it a treatment, just like if you go to the chiropractor and you get a treatment, just like you go to Reiki, you get a treatment. They believed in it so much that they affirmed that because they believed in that moment you were already transformed. Powerful, powerful energy and powerful essence. And so in this culture, at this time, that is why I am clearly convinced that we are all on the right track as we are aiming for a world that does not believe in war, a world that believes in peace. Because of all the things that I just told you. They didn't think the world was round. They didn't think certain things could happen. They didn't think oil was in the earth. They didn't think a lot of things. There are a lot of people that sit around and go, nah, never going to happen. We are not guided by that. As Elizabeth Blackwell, the first U.S. physician, said, it's awesome being a pioneer. Yes. And that is who we are. We are the pioneers of the new era of an energetic presence that knows the magic and the mystery can happen in the moment of the experience. So I'll close with the idea around hot dogs and whatever games on Memorial Day, or tofu for some of us. And I'll just say that there were 3 umpires, and they were talking about how they call the game called baseball. And one umpire says, call it the way I see it. And the other umpire says, I call it the way they are. And the other umpire says, they are what I call it. What do you call it? What do you call you? By describing, not definition. Thank you for coming today. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you.